One particularly vivid anecdote involves the filming of Lawrence of Arabia, 1962, the epic that cemented O'Toole's place among Hollywood's elite. In a key sequence depicting a dramatic camel raid, O'Toole and his co-star Omar Sharif were faced with an unexpected challenge, an intense fear of camels. The animals, essential to the film's authenticity, were not only imposing in size, but also notoriously temperamental, and neither actor was particularly eager to work closely with them. To cope with their unease, both O'Toole and Sharif turned to alcohol, staying inebriated throughout the entire scene. This choice, which O'Toole later recounted with a mix of amusement and self-deprecation, exemplified the lengths actors sometimes go to overcome personal fears. The decision to rely on alcohol for courage added an unexpected layer of drama to an already challenging shoot. The vast deserts of Jordan and Morocco, the unrelenting heat, and the logistical complexities of filming in remote locations made the production of Lawrence of Arabia notoriously grueling. For O'Toole, facing those hurdles with a steady supply of alcohol seemed almost pragmatic, if unconventional. O'Toole's recollections of the camel raid scene are as entertaining as they are revealing. When asked about the experience, he often chuckled, admitting he had no memory of the sequence due to his intoxicated state. The idea that one of the film's most iconic moments was performed under the influence only added to the legend of O'Toole's larger-than-life personality. His ability to deliver a captivating performance despite, or perhaps because of, his inebriation further cemented his reputation as a gifted, if unpredictable, artist. Frank Sinatra. Widely regarded as a functioning alcoholic, Frank Sinatra embraced drinking as an integral part of his persona, blending it seamlessly with his image as the quintessential Rat Pack leader. His preferred drink, a meticulously crafted concoction of 4 ice cubes, 2 fingers of Jack Daniels, and a splash of water served in a rocks glass, was as iconic as the man himself. This signature drink was not merely a preference, but a ritual, reflecting Sinatra's meticulous attention to detail in all aspects of his life. Rumors suggest that Sinatra consumed an entire bottle of Jack Daniels daily, a claim that astonished those closest to him, including his personal physician. His ability to maintain his charisma and work ethic despite such indulgence earned him the label of a functioning alcoholic. Sinatra's life was a whirlwind of performances, late-night escapades, and high-profile gatherings, embodying the mantra, "The best is yet to come," a sentiment he carried with him everywhere he went. For Sinatra, life was to be lived fully and boldly, with Jack Daniel often serving as his trusted companion. However, Sinatra's relationship with alcohol was not without its darker side. While it fueled his charm and loosened him up for the countless social and professional interactions that defined his career, it also exacerbated his temper. Known for his quick wit and sharp tongue, Sinatra could become confrontational when intoxicated. Journalists, fellow actors, and even friends were not immune to his fiery outbursts. These moments of aggression often contrasted sharply with his otherwise affable demeanor, creating a duality that fascinated and sometimes alienated those around him. Sinatra's ex-wife, Ava Gardner, offered an unfiltered glimpse into this side of him. She once recounted an incident that underscored the volatility of Sinatra's temperament when he drank gin. Unlike his preferred Jack Daniels, which seemed to bring out his boisterous yet charismatic nature, gin was a harbinger of trouble. Gardner described locking herself in their room upon seeing him pour a glass, knowing it signaled a shift toward aggression. Her account highlighted the unpredictability of Sinatra's moods when under the influence, painting a complex picture of a man whose public persona often masked his private struggles. Dean Martin built much of his on-stage persona around the image of a charismatic, good-natured drunkard. With a cigarette in one hand and a drink in the other, Martin's easygoing, humorous demeanor made him the epitome of cool and relaxed sophistication. He would often appear on stage with a slurred speech and a slightly unsteady gait, playing up the role of a lovable lush, a persona that endeared him to audiences and made him one of the most captivating members of the Rat Pack. However, behind the scenes, those close to Martin, including his daughter and lifelong friends, have shed light on the fact that this drunken persona was nothing more than a carefully constructed act. According to his daughter, Deanna Martin, and others who knew him well, Martin's on-stage antics were all part of a performance. Far from being a heavy drinker, Martin often had nothing more than apple juice in his glass. He carefully crafted the image of the charming, affable drunk, but in reality, his drinking was more for show than substance. The drink in his hand, along with the ever-present cigarette, were props that played an essential role in shaping the public's perception of him as the carefree, fun-loving entertainer. This deliberate creation of an image allowed Martin to stand out in an era where the line between reality and performance was often blurred. His effortless charm, combined with the illusion of inebriation, struck a chord with his audience, particularly in the context of his musical and comedic performances. While Martin's fellow Rat Pack members, including Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., were known for their talents and offbeat antics, Martin's distinctiveness came from the laid-back air of his act. Whether performing with a glass raised or joking with the audience about his supposed drunkenness, he had the remarkable ability to make it look as if everything was effortlessly enjoyable. Men aspired to be like Dean Martin, and women longed to be in his company. His appeal lay not just in his looks or his voice, but in the carefully cultivated image of someone who appeared unburdened by the pressures of life and fame. In an era when masculinity was often associated with stoic strength, Martin's persona offered a fresh take. He was the embodiment of the relaxed, cool figure who could still be strong and competent, all while projecting an image of ease and good humor. For men, Martin was the ideal of casual confidence. They wanted to be as smooth as he was, always ready with a quick joke, a drink in hand, and the poise to charm anyone in the room. Leonard Nimoy. Leonard Nimoy faced a personal battle with alcohol addiction during the height of his fame. His struggles, largely hidden from the public eye, were shaped by the pressures and demands of being part of such a groundbreaking and iconic show. The Star Trek series, which ran from 1966 to 1969, was grueling both in terms of the intense shooting schedules and the personal challenges of being thrust into stardom. For Nimoy, the overwhelming nature of this fame led him to turn to alcohol as a coping mechanism, a choice that would eventually spiral into addiction. Nimoy himself openly acknowledged that alcohol became a way for him to manage the difficult and often overwhelming realities of being a public figure. The long, demanding days on set, combined with the pressure of playing a role that would become internationally known, took a toll on his mental and emotional well-being. Nimoy's portrayal of Spock, with his logical, stoic demeanor, required not just an on-screen commitment, but also an emotional fortitude that proved to be taxing for him. As he navigated this newfound fame, alcohol seemed like a temporary escape, something to take the edge off the stresses of both the public eye and the professional demands of a major television series. Initially, Nimoy's drinking was perhaps an occasional release, a single drink at the end of a long day to relax. However, as the pressures of fame mounted, what began as an attempt to unwind gradually escalated into a more serious issue. William Shatner, who played Captain James T. Kirk on Star Trek and was Nimoy's close co-star, observed how alcohol began to serve as a shield for Nimoy, providing him with a temporary barrier against the overwhelming pressures that fame brought. Shatner noted that Nimoy, like many in Hollywood, struggled with the intensity of being constantly in the spotlight, and alcohol became his way of dealing with these feelings of anxiety and insecurity. The escalation of Nimoy's drinking was also fueled by his predisposition toward addictive behavior. Like many individuals who develop dependencies, Nimoy's relationship with alcohol grew beyond mere recreation into a pattern of consumption that took on a life of its own. As his addiction progressed, Nimoy found it increasingly difficult to break the cycle. Alcohol, once a coping mechanism, became a way to numb the mounting pressures of his celebrity status, and the more he drank, the more he felt trapped by his dependency. The pressure to maintain the public image of the cool, composed Spock contrasted sharply with the reality of his inner turmoil, and the alcohol served as a temporary solace. However, the toll that Nimoy's addiction was taking on his personal and professional life eventually became impossible to ignore. His struggles behind the scenes were not only affecting his health, but also his relationships with co-stars, friends, and family. The very pressures that had driven him to drink now became compounded by the growing recognition that his addiction was spiraling out of control. Nimoy's ability to manage both the demands of fame and his personal life was faltering, and the moment of realization became a turning point. After the conclusion of Star Trek's original run, Nimoy came to terms with the fact that his alcohol dependency was no longer something he could manage on his own. In a courageous decision, he sought help, recognizing that he needed professional intervention to confront the addiction that had been quietly ravaging his life for years. Nimoy entered rehabilitation, beginning the process of overcoming his alcohol dependency. His decision to seek help was not only a testament to his strength, but also a moment of self-awareness, marking a significant turning point in his life. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford's role as Pepsi's ambassador saw her traveling extensively around the globe, attending events, meeting with business executives, and participating in promotional campaigns. Her travels were accompanied by some distinctive personal requirements, particularly when it came to beverages. At each stop on her worldwide tours, Crawford ensured that her personal refreshments were well stocked. This list went far beyond the expected case of Pepsi, which naturally served as a centerpiece of her promotional efforts. Her drink requests reflected a strong preference for a variety of spirits, including 2/5 of Smirnoff vodka, 1/5 of Old Forester bourbon, 1/5 of scotch, 1/5 of Beefeater gin, and 2 bottles of champagne. This eclectic mix of alcohol highlighted Crawford's penchant for indulgence and luxury, embodying the glamorous and somewhat extravagant persona that had become synonymous with her name. The inclusion of Pepsi in her beverage lineup, however, was a strategic necessity and a nod to her professional obligations. Crawford was deeply committed to her role at PepsiCo, particularly after Steele's sudden death in 1959, which left her determined to honor his legacy and secure her position on the company's board of directors. Her association with Pepsi became so intertwined with her identity that it's hard to imagine her public appearances without a can or bottle of the iconic cola nearby. One can only imagine the irony if her beverage of choice had been Coca-Cola instead. Her staunch allegiance to Pepsi undoubtedly saved the company from what would have been an awkward contradiction. Crawford's beverage requests were more than just a reflection of her personal tastes. They were emblematic of the glamorous and indulgent lifestyle she had cultivated over decades as one of Hollywood's brightest stars. As someone who was well aware of the image she projected, Crawford likely understood that her choices would add to her mystique, blending the sophistication of a global corporate ambassador with the hedonism of a true Hollywood icon. It's worth noting, however, that her preference for alcohol was not without its consequences, as rumors of her drinking habits occasionally sparked whispers about her behavior at public events. Robert Shaw. Known for his hard-drinking ways, Robert Shaw exacerbated tensions on set by indulging in scotch throughout the grueling filming schedule, a habit that strained his relationships, particularly with his younger co-star Richard Dreyfuss. The dynamic between Shaw and Dreyfuss was as volatile as the turbulent waters where much of the film was shot, adding an additional layer of intensity to the already arduous production process. Shaw's persistent inebriation was a recurring issue that overshadowed many of his interactions with the cast and crew. While his drinking didn't diminish his raw talent, it created an unpredictable working environment. His bouts of drunkenness often led to erratic behavior, making it difficult for others to engage with him on a professional level. Yet, in an ironic twist, Shaw reportedly abstained from alcohol during one of the film's most iconic scenes, Quint's harrowing recount of the sinking of the USS Indianapolis. In this monologue, Quint's character appears deeply intoxicated, a portrayal so convincing that it underscored Shaw's remarkable ability to channel his personal struggles into a riveting performance. Richard Dreyfuss, who played the eager marine biologist Matt Hooper, bore the brunt of Shaw's irascibility. The tension between the two actors mirrored their characters' on-screen rivalry, but unlike their scripted exchanges, their real-life friction often stemmed from Shaw's drunken outbursts. Dreyfuss later admitted that he found Shaw far more agreeable and professional when sober, emphasizing the challenge of working with someone under the influence. Shaw's intoxicated state, while perhaps lending an edge to his portrayal of Quint, frustrated Dreyfuss, who preferred a more stable and collaborative atmosphere on set. One incident encapsulated the growing animosity between the two. During a break in filming, Shaw, as was his habit, poured himself a glass of scotch. Dreyfuss, fed up with the older actor's behavior, decided to take matters into his own hands. He seized the glass from Shaw's hand and, in a dramatic gesture, hurled its contents overboard into the vast Atlantic Ocean. The act was emblematic of the escalating tension between the two men, as well as Dreyfuss's exasperation with Shaw's lack of restraint. While the moment may have offered temporary satisfaction, it did little to ease the underlying friction that continued to simmer throughout the production. What do you think about these stars' alcoholism? Leave us your comments in the section below. We hope you have found this helpful video. Don't forget to leave a like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you like it. Thank you for watching this and see you in the next videos. Goodbye.